Oh! What'd you do to me? Oh! 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 What are people doing leaving 2x4s laying around in a tropical storm? Oh! 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 All right, well, I'm going to have to pull this thing out of me eventually during the show, but let's just hope that we don't have any more storms as bad as Anna this year. Oh, my God. If you're wondering why I'm in the chicken suit, one of my top five did not get hit last year, unfortunately. So I'm going to have to sweat my ass off and bleed to death during this show. Oh my God. All right, enough of this crap. All right, Jim Williams here. What are we going to have the rest of the hurricane season? Next named storm is Bill. And speaking of Bill, let's go to my co-host tonight, Bill Phillips, and see if what he's up to, and he's going to join us tonight. Let's go ahead and get the split screen going here. Get his camera going. He should be up on the screen there. I don't know what the hell is this? Bill, wake up! What are you doing, man? You missed the whole opening. Hey, wake up! What are you doing? Hey!
Oh, shit.
Get out of bed, man! If this is any indication of what Tropical Storm Bill's going to be like, we're in trouble. Or actually, we won't be in trouble. We'll be in good shape.
Oh, shit.
Wake up! You missed all the excitement.
Oh, man.
What'd you forget we had the show tonight?
Oh, shit. We haven't had any activity the last 10 years. I just decided to skip it. I said the hell with it.
Oh, my God.
I abandoned you. I'm fired.
I know it's been slow, but come on, man.
I mean, damn.
All right.
What's the best we can do?
All right, so what are you going to do? You're going to lay in bed? You're going to lay there the entire time? Or you're going to get back in your chair? What are you going to do?
No, I'll get up when you cut away or show an image.
All right, Tropical Storm Bill, ladies and gentlemen. Let's hope it's not Hurricane Bill. But Bill will be a hurricane anyways, regardless of whether Bill is a tropical storm. Last time we had Bill was a pretty significant hurricane, actually, up in the, wasn't it, Bill, the last time your name was used?
But he was a fish. He didn't affect anybody. He was a fish, I believe.
Say that again, I couldn't hear you.
He was a fish.
Yeah, well, no, didn't it go into Newfoundland or something, or no?
I would have to look it up. Maybe flipped Newfoundland, but it wasn't that big of a deal. Brought some waves to them.
All right. Yeah. Anyway, let me turn around, face the crowd here. All right, what we're going to do tonight is, I hate this chicken soup, man. I can't stand it. But I'm going to sweat it out because I made a deal at the beginning of the hurricane season. If none of my top 5 cities or islands got affected last year, I'd wear this chicken suit. And it's like 500 degrees in here. It's absolutely brutal. Hopefully Bill's going to be able to help me out a little bit here tonight. But
Don't let me hear you whine.
Well, you know what? I got to do it. But sadly, my number 6 pick last year was Bermuda, and it got hit by 2 hurricanes. So because I was one off, I got to be stuck in this damn suit. But hey, look, I know people are probably tuning into this show tonight and thinking, well, we were going to tune in and get some serious information here, like these guys are going to tell us how to. Well, let me get full screen, Bill, because your camera's all over the place there.
I'm trying to get in the chair. I thought you would cut away from me, so I hit it probably.
Okay. Anyway, people are probably tuning into this thinking, well, we were going to get some serious information here tonight, but We're looking at a guy in his chicken suit and another guy laying sleeping on the couch. But no, seriously, Hurricane City, for those of you that may be new to Hurricane City, it's all about, what we do is take hurricane tracking to like another level, and a lot of it's entertainment. We have webcam. When I feature a city at Hurricane City, there's webcams and radio feeds and stuff from the area, so you can watch it. If you're not in the affected areas, you can see it happening as it happens. And we do live broadcasts from the road, which we haven't had a chance to do in like 10 years because it's been so dead in the Atlantic Basin. There's
it's been planned for 4 years, but we haven't had anything to do.
I know, it's been pretty dead. But we do take hurricanes seriously, don't get me wrong, but we also like to have a little fun with it. And this year, you're going to see we're going to do a lot of shows this year, like pre-storm, like hurricane watch type shows, where we're going to be on the road where the storm is, giving you the latest information from the affected areas, let you know what's happening as the storm is moving in. We'll have live video from the road. We're going to have a remote cam. I'll show you all that stuff in just a minute. We are on the serious side too, but if you're tuning in here tonight to find out about how many gallons of water you need per person per day for your family, you tuned into the wrong place. Then we have a niche of people that are on the internet that have been following Hurricane City since it's been almost like 20 years now that Hurricane City's been on the internet. And we have a large following of hurricane enthusiasts, people that are really into hurricane statistics, hurricane landfalls, the history of them. We have a great message board, canetalk.com. We have great support by a lot of people. In fact, I want to put a special thanks out to Chris Hollis from tropicalatlantic.com. Chris has really helped to tweak Hurricane City this year. We have the new Hurricane City with all GIS maps. So I built a lot of those maps, but Chris has been tweaking a lot of the KML files that get built into the maps and helping to tweak the code at Hurricane City. So Chris has done an outstanding job. And he's also had a recent death in the family, so it's been hard to get him to help, get everything all set up and, get it operating functionally. But he's done an outstanding job. Everything is ready. We have Hurricane Hunter Recon. We have buoys and ships on the map. The more you zoom in on the map, the more information that's going to become available. And then when you go to the map on the front page of Hurricane City, the live broadcast that you're watching now will open right up on that map by clicking the play button in the upper right-hand corner. So everything is like self-contained at Hurricane City this year. And really looking forward to deploying a lot of the stuff this year. And again, I'll show you some images coming up here shortly. But this show tonight is going to be mainly just talking about the upcoming hurricane season. We're not going to talk. I know there's a disturbed area of weather down in the Caribbean that's moving up towards Florida. And, last year we didn't do a show last year, actually. The year before that, we had Jim Leonard in the studio with Derek, I believe. Was that the year before last, Bill?
Yeah.
And, Jim Leonard passed away last year. Was it last year or was it early this? No, it was last year.
No, it was...
And he had a long battle with cancer, and he's sorely missed. He's one of the original storm chasers out there, guys that were probably one of the first guys to chase a hurricane that I know of. I know Richard Rodner does it. Richard and Jim did it in the early days back in the 80s and the 70s. But Jim passed away. He was holding out for one last storm. It never happened. So from what I understand, Mike Dice is going to be dumping his ashes in the eye of a hurricane if one makes landfall this year. So we'll see how that all plays out. But, Jim always loved to be on these shows. He was on quite a few of these hurricane season kickoff shows. So he's going to be sorely missed this year. But we'll see what happens with this hurricane season. A lot of chasers, people that are weather enthusiasts, are really into hurricane season. They like to see where they're going to go. Am I going to be able to chase it? Is it? And again, it's more of a weather enthusiast community that follows Hurricane City. But the information that can be gathered at Hurricane City is really phenomenal. I mean, we have the best performing models on that map. There's hundreds of models out there when there's a developing storm, and you want to figure, well, where's it going to go? what do I need to be concerned with it? Well, that map at Hurricane City updates automatically with the cone of error, and then the models, the best performing model over a 24-hour period will be shown on the map, with the best being number 1 to the least number 5 of the 5 best performing models out of hundreds of models. So when you see those models on the map, you'll oftentimes see the models wrapped inside the cone of error from the National Hurricane Center, because you can tell that the National Hurricane Center is using the same group of models to make their forecasts, because the models are always inside the cone. Very rarely do they go outside the cone. But it's interesting because when the red one is the one you want to pay attention to, that's the model that tells you the best performer over 24 hours. And I'll do occasional tropical update videos to let you know my thoughts on the models and what the latest webcams are that are showing some really cool stuff, and weather observations and what everybody in the business is doing. So we try to make it an interactive experience for people that really don't know that much about hurricanes, people that are experts, like self-proclaimed experts, and then you have the real experts, the guys that work down at the National Hurricane Center and are in the weather business, television meteorologists. They pay attention to Hurricane City. Don't kid yourself. They know about the database. They know about the predictions. They know about these shows, the chicken suits, all that stuff. They're paying attention out there, and they, they're probably shaking their head in disbelief at this point. But they're probably thinking, well, what's the lighter side to it all? Because you know what, hurricanes are going to come whether you want them to or not. So if they're going to come, you might as well, make the best of it. As a weather enthusiast, and get involved in telling your neighbors, a hurricane's coming, here's how you get prepared. I always focus on the areas, the cities that I feel are going to be impacted the worst by a storm on the move, and I feature them at Hurricane City, and I'll always give information about everything going on in that city on my tropical update videos, and the database is a wealth of information as well for finding out about the area being impacted by a storm. And it's just a complete entertaining experience, but educational and informative. But again, if you're looking for how many batteries do I need, how many bottles of water, the evacuation routes, what the local officials are saying, please go to your local weather personality that you like to watch on television. They're usually on top of it, your local television. Of course, the National Hurricane Center website, your local emergency management, all the typical areas you go to for really important information. But at Hurricane City this year, we also have the storm surge maps, where you're going to be able to get right down to almost street level, telling you where the surge should come in based on a category 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then when a storm is actually approaching land, the National Hurricane Center will be releasing a detailed map showing where they expect the water inundation to occur. So I think that those maps are going to really come in handy at Hurricane City, along with all the best track information. We're going to give all the details. How far is the storm from your city? What's the forward speed? Where is it on the map? Where has it been before? All those things will be on the maps at Hurricane City. So it's a complete soup to nuts, if you want to call it that, website that's got everything you could possibly need. And of course, go to canetalk.com. We've got a group. You know what's nice about Cane Talk is, compared to some other message boards that are out there, Cane Talk is like a bunch of regular people, but they're weather enthusiasts, and they have a lot of good information to pass along. But it's not everybody trying to step on each other. Like, it's not a forecasting contest. You don't see people bickering in there. It's pretty much just a well-rounded group of people that just like to track hurricanes, and they're enthusiasts, and they pass a lot of information along that's really valuable to people that are in harm's way as hurricanes approach. So the whole package is at hurricanecity.com. Everything you could possibly need to track a storm as it's on the move in the Atlantic Basin. As I mentioned, I got Bill here with me. I see your big head behind me here. Bill, anything you want to add before we start getting some images here tonight and taking phone calls and emails and whatnot?
It's just, let's just get started, and we're going to let the chips fall where they may. It's the, one thing one thing that I think, Jim, I think that you and I need to discuss here is, unlike some of the other tracking sites, we're not going to other than what's on the map and what we're used to doing, we'll you'll get all the track. What was that? Sorry, it distracted me. You get tracking information and everything else that you're used to, but we're going to try some new things at Hurricane City as far as possible chasing and all of that. And I emphasize possible because there's a lot of luck involved, a lot of planning, and a lot of things have to go right for that to happen. Jim's schedule, both of our schedules have to work. My school schedule has to work. His work schedule. But we're not, unlike some of the other sites, we promise nothing. We just try to give you the best information, and we're not going to blow it up. If the information's there, it's there. If not, we'll give you the best. We'll give you the best stuff we can. But we're not going to just fake it like some of the other sites. I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Jim. I threw you some bones there. Hey.
Okay, I just was adjusting my mic here real quick. I have a picture here of the cam we're going to be using this year on the dashboard of the truck. This is our chase vehicle, and this is an HD cam that it's one of these cameras where you can actually record 24 hours a day, but when we're going live on the broadcast, we can hook it right through to the Ustream channel and give you live motion video from the scene. And this camera is new this year. Last year we were using just a standard variety camera that is hooked up to a laptop. Of course, we never got a chance to use it. In fact, the last storm we were in was Tropical Storm Isaac in 2012 with Jim Leonard. And I did set the remote cam up as well. I'll show you that in just a minute. But this camera was not involved in it. It was just a regular standard dash camera. That trip was kind of a train wreck from the word go. But we've done so much practicing, Bill and I, on this.
We're tired of practicing.
Yeah, it's been like 10 years. We haven't had a hurricane in Florida. Actually, outside of Sandy, it's been pretty dead for the United States. So, and we don't go up to the Northeast. That's the one area that I will not go. I may go as far up as Virginia Beach to help Bill out. The Outer Banks are out of the question because of storm surge flooding. I will be doing the entire Southeast, the Florida Peninsula, the Florida Keys, and we talked about this earlier, Bill. Even if it's a Category 5, I'm heading down to the Keys. That's the kind of opportunity as a person that covers hurricanes and wants to bring it live to the audience. That's one opportunity I won't pass up, and I'll just find high ground. There's plenty of high ground areas down in the Florida Keys that are 15 feet above sea level that we'll have to seek out and hopefully find a parking garage. But at any rate, the entire Southeast is in play. The Gulf of Mexico all the way up till about Mississippi, and then anything west of that's really going to have to be a major deal for us to make the trip that far west. But what you're going to get with us, and you've probably already got a sense of that with us talking back and forth here, but if you go to our Ustream channel and you watch all of our archives of us going out there and practicing this, it's hysterical. It's one comedy error after the next. We argue with each other. We scream. We laugh about stuff. We talk about sports, politics. We're all over the place.
Have to clean up for chasing purposes, but some of that's salty, but oh well.
Yeah, look, you're going to put your big boy pants on if you're going to listen to us because things can get a little messy at times. But it's entertaining at the same time. We're going to provide information. Like Bill's going to be monitoring what's happening in the affected areas. If he sees somewhere I need to go, somewhere I need to be to bring you guys the footage, I'm going to do that. Bill, you don't need to worry about your cam shot at the moment because I'm not showing it. But
I was going to show my setup in the office while you were talking. But if you don't have it set up,
yeah, go ahead and get that ready while I'm talking. But we're pretty entertaining. I mean, we have we laugh about stuff. We talk about all these different scenarios, and we've gone ad nauseum over this broadcast possibilities for a hurricane. But that's just one aspect of Hurricane City. I mean, Hurricane City is about tracking the storm. It's about the live broadcast. It's a statistical database where you can go into and pick any city you want, and it'll give you all the historical references to that city. And by the way, I want to put a special thanks out to the Tampa Bay Times and the USA Today, a paper in Louisiana. It's an offshoot of the USA Today. Did a story on hurricanes and landfalls in the upcoming hurricane season, and they did mention Hurricane City and myself on my predictions. If those of you that don't know my predictions this year, I'm predicting my number one area is the Central Texas. Number one is Naples to Port Charlotte on the southwest Florida coast. My number two area is I think it's Panama City. Number three is the you know what? Let me start with number 5 because I'm thinking from number 5 to number 1. I can think better that way. Number 5 is the Central Texas coastline from Port O'Connor, Texas to Matagorda, Texas, sparsely populated area of coastline of the Texas coast. My number 4 area is Morgan City, Louisiana. It's a shipping port in just southwest of New Orleans. My number 3 is Key West. My number 2 is Panama City, and number 1 is Naples to Port Charlotte, Florida. And if you want to see the rest of my top 20, visit hurricanecity.com/predictions, and you can get all the information, video, picture. I have a map of my locations. I have a video, which is very informative. There's a GIS map on the front page of Hurricane City, right below the tracking map. Click on Jim's predictions, and it'll give you a map where you can click on each location I chose and what my reasoning is for it. And, Bill, quickly before we get to the chase stuff, I just wanted to mention one more thing because it's on my mind. And that is there's kind of a little bit of pushback about my predictions. And I sensed this last year when I met with Max Mayfield down in the Florida Keys. I was invited to speak at or be a part of a panel at the Florida Keys Tourism Board. And they had a large crowd there that was interested in the hurricane season coming up. And they invited me because of my season predictions. And actually, Max Mayfield knew of my number 12 pick, which was Key Largo last year. And this year, Key Largo has moved up to number 10. But they do pay attention, the former Hurricane Center forecasters and current forecasters. Rick Knabb was there. He knows all about hurricane cities. He's been on the site, knows what it's all about. But I'm sensing there's a little bit of a pushback on the city prediction scheme simply because the rumor is out there, well, there's no way that you can tell where a hurricane's going to go based on statistical analysis. But I would argue that there's no way anybody can tell me where a hurricane's going to go based on simply looking at the El Nino pattern or the NAO or the MJO or anything like that. You can't do it at the beginning of the hurricane season and tell me where a hurricane's going to be in August or September. The only thing you can do is statistically calculate what areas get impacted when there's slow versus busy seasons and then tweak it from there, and that's what I do at Hurricane City. Now, the notion is that, well, this is a bad idea. You got people that, like Phil Klotzbach and Dr. William Gray, Dr. Phil Klotzbach, Dr. William Gray, that come out with how many named storms they expect there to be during the upcoming hurricane season. They do a great job. The only problem is they're telling you how many named storms there are, but for the average Joe out there, that doesn't translate into anything for them. And
they all get to update it 2 or 3 times a year. You don't.
Yeah, I just make my call at the beginning of the hurricane season and let the chips fall where they may, and I have a very good track record at this. But these guys, if you look at Phil Klotzbach's eTransit site, what he does is he goes and picks counties, all the counties all over the coast, from Maine all the way down to Texas, and he puts a percentage on what areas he thinks are going to have a chance of being affected by a storm. And the problem is the percentages are 1%, 2%, 3%. How can anybody get an idea of the difference between one area and another when you're only dealing with such small percentages. So what I do in Hurricane City is just come right out and pick what cities I think are going to be impacted. And when I say impacted, I'm talking about a named storm, usually coming within 60 miles. Now, there is a little bit of wiggle room in that because some systems are large and they can have larger wind fields. So if it's an 80-mile wide tropical storm wind field with sustained tropical storm force winds, that will be considered as a brush, and that means that city will have been affected by a named storm. So that will count. It doesn't have to be a hurricane. But I would also argue that it draws attention to people in their city. You know, I don't know if you've noticed this, Bill, this year with all the stories coming out about this hurricane season, a lot of people are talking about cities. And I remember even 4, 5, 6, 7, 10 years ago, you would never hear the Hurricane Center referencing certain cities. They would just go, well, we think the southeast, or we think the northeast, or we think the Gulf of Mexico could be more active versus another area. Now they're starting to talk more about cities. I think what's that?
It's an indirect reference to Hurricane City, whether they want to admit it or not. They're taking notice of your work, whether they want to give you outright credit or not. You should be very happy.
Yeah, I mean, Rick Knapp today mentioned Fort Lauderdale. I mean, I've never heard him talk about, well, if this, Fort Lauderdale hasn't been hit in X amount of years. And when you start referencing cities, it starts opening people's eyes because a lot of people live in a particular city and you never hear the experts talking about cities. They're only talking about counties or geographic regions. And so now people that are in, even like, say somebody lives in Spring Hill, Florida, which is just north of Texas. North of Tampa, I meant to say. North of Texas. North of Tampa. That's a relatively small city, but if you're living there, you're thinking, wow, this guy's finally talking about my city. Like, nobody else is talking about my city, and I'm concerned about the hurricane season coming up. So whether you're a big city, a small city, we talk about all the cities. And when it's going down and it's hitting those cities, hopefully if one of my cities get hit this year, we will be there covering it, and I'll be able to point to the same things that I was showing people on May 15th as we're right there in the eye of a hurricane or a tropical storm or whatever, and we'll be able to say, I predicted this area was going to be impacted by a named storm this year, and here we are live on camera filming it. So that's going to be a kind of a fun thing this year.
No offense, we're not going to... Don't get people's hopes up, man. We won't go to Texas for a tropical storm. It's going to have to be more than that.
Yeah, I'm not going to. If Port O'Connor to Matagorda, Texas gets hit by even a Category 1, we're not going to be there for that. But if it's a Category 1 in Alabama, Mississippi, Florida, Georgia, yeah, we're probably going to go get that. Or if it's a major hurricane further away, we may go get it. But and of course, we're not going to go to the Caribbean. It's just that's just absolutely out of the question. But here's our chase vehicle. This is a Ford F-250. It's got everything you could possibly need for chasing. And I have a paving business, so I use this for my business as well. But it's got heavy-duty construction on it. All those cabinets there on the side are going to house everything: generator, backup stuff, first aid kit, chainsaw, blankets, extra boards, food, everything you could possibly need to survive for days if need be. And the truck is robust, solid. It's got the yellow flashing lights, so we can pull off, and be able to, not be hassled by the local police. Hopefully that won't be the case when we get to these areas. And then we're going to put our remote cam up there. I think I got to go. Yeah, there it is. This is our remote cam. It's a very small, like the size of a shoebox. And this cam has been operating flawlessly. Bill and I have been testing it ad nauseum for the past several days. And this thing will run about 24 to 36 hours. Giving nighttime video and daytime video, and we're going to deploy this kind of like what Mark does at HurricaneTrack.com. But I figured, every year we're covering Mark in the storm, and I figured this year, we've been planning this for years, but we need to get out in the storm and cover it ourselves, and find the best place to film it. Set the camera up where you can actually see something, not just open road or a few waves lapping up against a wall. I want people to be able to see something interesting, so I'm going to really work hard to deploy this in a place where you're going to get an epic view of what's happening as a hurricane is making landfall. And I'll even set it up
lightly.
And I'll even set this up in a tropical storm, because I want to be able to show show people what it can do, and also just to see if it works correctly and if there's any bugs we need to work out on this. But and there's a device to fasten this that's really, really solid. There won't be any duct tape or cords or rope or anything like that. This has got a solid mounting system where it's probably, and that's an indestructible box, by the way. It looks like it's made out of glass, but that's like bulletproof glass. Like nothing is getting through. It's an indestructible box. Like you could drive over it with a truck and it won't even break.
It's military-grade material.
Yeah. And it's waterproof, obviously, so storm surge will not be an issue. But, we don't want to submerge it either, so we're going to try to keep it elevated somewhat. But this will be on the screen, this live cam shot from the remote cam, along with my dash cam, and Bill will be streaming from Virginia Beach, bringing you all this as it's happening. And it'll be a split screen sometimes. Sometimes it'll be only on the cam that's on the beach or wherever we decide to deploy this thing. Or it may be split screen, and Bill will also be bringing you radar pictures, satellite pictures, news.
Everything.
Yeah, everything. And Bill, you even do the scanner stuff, right?
I'm actually in the process of trying to program. I don't know if you're going to have it for the first chase. I got to work with the radio, but I'm in the process of. In the last 4 to 5 years, they've completely redone how they do how the police, basically since 9/11, the communication structure in this country has changed. The whole aspect of listening to a police scanner has changed. I mean, I'm in the process of relearning all that and programming it. If it works, Jim will be able to. I'll have it pre-programmed for him, where he'll be able to select whatever county he's in, whatever city he's in, and be able to bring you the local ham radio feeds, the police scanner feeds, the ambulance feeds from a given area, from the area affected. And where this will come in handy is probably aftermath, not so much during the storm. It's quiet, unless you're listening to ham radio or something like that. Because they pull, winds get to 60 or 70 miles an hour, they pull a lot of the emergency resources off the roads because they don't want their equipment damaged or anything else.
Right.
So it's often quiet. But where that's going to come in handy is pre and post storm, is people getting around, possible looting in an area after a hurricane threatens. And yes, 90% of this stuff is available online for streaming, but what happens? It's just like the cams. They all go down and don't come back during a hurricane. If he has a radio in the truck that can stream all of that, then we can listen to it and we can stream it right back to our audience regardless of, because we're handling it ourselves. We're right there listening, streaming it back to you all.
Right.
It's a work in progress, but among other things, that's a whole nother aspect that I'm working on. No promises with that, but I'm working on it.
Yeah, incidentally, let me show a quick shot, Bill, showing his kind of, you switch your cam shot again. There we go. Yeah, you got, Bill's showing his setup here. It's a lot of cords, wires, whatnot. Bill's disabled, so he has a chair that he needs a room to get underneath there, so he has that big opening to get underneath that main computer there and do the stream from that location. And he's got everything in his fan. It's a little bit messy there right now, but at the moment, but
He's got everything you could possibly need there to stream live in a hurricane for the audience, and
Three computers sitting here, a mixing board. I can't show you everything. I'd have to take probably better start taking the phone off and really zooming in on the table, but I don't feel like doing that because I got this thing mounted where you all can see me and things like that.
Right.
But I don't know if you could tell on the screen. I've got the main page of Hurricane City up on the monitor there.
Yeah, but you're not aiming high enough. We're just looking at a bunch of wires hanging underneath the table. So I'm going to go ahead and switch to the other image I was going to show. You might want to adjust that up a little bit, and I'm going to go ahead and show people
this. Well,
this.
I'll go back to me. I'm not going to show the room anymore.
All right, yeah. So I have this map up here. It's the 2014 $1 billion weather and climate disaster map. Now, what do you see that's missing on this map? No hurricanes. No tropical storms. In fact, the entire East Coast, with the exception of of course, we had the major northeast snowstorm there on January 5th and the 8th. But other than that, it's been kind of not much going on for the people on the coastal areas where hurricanes normally hit. Now, Texas has had a lot of rain recently, and this is a concern going into the hurricane season. And, by the way, if Texas is going to get hit, it's going to be early. They are the earliest area that gets hit in the entire Atlantic Basin. They get hit on an average of August 7th by named storms. So they get hit earlier than anybody else on average. Compared to South Florida, for example, our height of the hurricane season is late September through October. So there are different areas that get hit at different times of the year on average. Now, that doesn't mean there's not an anomaly and there can't be something that comes along at a different time. Texas has been hit by plenty of September systems, a few October systems, but if you had to gamble all the money on your house, if you're in Vegas and you had to put all your money down in a stack on the table and say, what's the best time that Texas is going to be hit? It's going to be middle of August, maybe even early August, right around the 7th of August. So that is something to be concerned about if you're in Texas early systems. And then, of course, South Florida and the northern Gulf Coast tend to be closer to the height of the hurricane season. And then further down you get in the peninsula of Florida, you get the later in the year. Getting in late September, October is when we usually get a lot of systems coming through South Florida.
I mean, Jim, it just makes sense. You have later in the season, you have a lot of troughs and fronts that come down, and they turn systems off to the north and east, away from the Texas coast. As to early in the season, you have more of a dominant high-pressure system down there that steers the systems into the Gulf and towards the Texas coast.
That's right.
It's really that's the nutshell of it. That's not hard to figure out.
Well, and then you got the Caribbean. Let's not forget about our friends down in the Caribbean and the Bahamas. The Bahamas tend to get hit either very, very early in the season by these systems from the Caribbean Sea moving northeast, or they get hit generally in September. That's like the most likely time that the Bahamas are going to be hit by a system. Bermuda tends to get hit late. They get hit late in September, early October by all those recurvatures out in the Atlantic. And they always get hit in slow seasons for whatever reason. So even though Bermuda was hit last year by 2 hurricanes, do not let your guard down in Bermuda because they could be hit again this year. There's been a rich hurricane history of 3 years in a row that Bermuda has been hit by a named storm, so it's not out of the question. Bermuda could be affected yet again. And the Northeast, United States, I mean, look, when you get to the Outer Banks of North Carolina, any given season, the Outer Banks are the most hit area in the entire Atlantic Basin. They get hit when there's an average of like once every 1.5 years by a named storm. So
a year and a half. That's every 18 months.
Every 18 months, a named storm going back to 1871 will come over or near the Outer Banks of North Carolina, whether it's purely tropical, extratropical.
Doesn't matter. They're there.
Yeah. But now the thing is, most of them recurve out into the open Atlantic. Occasionally you get one that rides up the East Coast. We saw that with Irene. We saw that with
Ida.
Was it Ida? Yeah, Ida.
Irene, Ida.
And then, of course, Sandy. Sandy went out and came back. It kind of avoided
Which
North
made-
Carolina. Gave him some bad weather, but it still came back. But the Northeast doesn't play in any given hurricane season. But again, if you're in the Northeast, the most likely time to be hit is late September. But from mid-September through the first week of October, if you're in the Northeast, that's the most likely time that you're going to be affected by a named storm, period. There are anomalies. Again, people hate these statistics. I've had people email me, I'm punching my fist through the screen. I can't stand return rates and statistics and blah, blah, blah. But there's something to be said when you have, 10, 20, 30, 40 case points of data to take from. And some of these cities have over 100 landfalls. So it's a good source of data. If you have 100 landfalls and you can calculate the most likely time to be hit, that's a lot of data to choose from. So you can definitely kind of calculate on average when an area is going to be affected. But again, there's always that time of the year when it may not. Like look at South Florida with Andrew. That was August 24th. I mean, that we hardly ever get hit in August in South Florida. It has happened in the past. We've had probably a handful of August hurricanes down here, but the majority of them are in September, October. But there's always that rare one that comes along. So everybody needs to be ready no matter what time of the year it is, but I'm just kind of giving people an idea of the certain time of the year that your area is more apt to be affected. And my number 4 area, Morgan City, Louisiana, that would be, probably in the middle of September. Panama City, you'd be talking maybe a little bit later in the season, maybe the 3rd week of September on average for that area. And then the Florida West Coast is vulnerable early in the season and then very late in the season in October. So, and now you get down in the Caribbean. I don't want to forget about the people down in the Caribbean and Mexico. The Yucatan is pretty much open for business year-round. The Yucatan is one of those areas that could be hit in June as easily as it could be hit in October. And that goes for all the way down to Nicaragua, all the way up to Cancun. The Caribbean, Jamaica. Jamaica tends to get hit like right around the 3rd week of September on average. Cuba, big difference between West Cuba and East Cuba. West Cuba, you tend to get a lot of systems that come in there maybe towards the early part of September, late August. And the west part of Cuba, the east part of Cuba, which is south of Andros Island, they get hit a little bit later in the season on average, late the 3rd, 4th week of September. And then the interesting area of the Caribbean to me is the Haiti, Dominican Republic area, where first of all, those areas hardly ever get hit by hurricanes. I don't know, they have like a force field over them that very rarely does a hurricane pass directly over Haiti. They pass just north, just south, and by the time they get to Haiti, they're usually torn up by the mountains of Hispaniola, the Dominican Republic. But that whole area there from the central Bahamas, from Great Anagua down to Haiti, over to the Dominican Republic, generally tend to get hit in September. That's the most likely time to be hit down there. But they don't get hit nearly as much as the Bahamas and South Florida do, or Cuba does, period. And then Puerto Rico's another one of those areas that could be hit at any given time. Puerto Rico gets hit. They've been hit in August, but probably the most likely time for Puerto Rico is later in the season. And the reason why, now we've had plenty of systems pass over there in early September, but late in the season, you tend to get these systems developing out there in the eastern Caribbean Sea, and then a trough will come off the United States and kick the system north. So it never makes it west of, say, 70. So they turn north and they pass right over Puerto Rico or the Virgin Islands or the Greater Antilles, or they'll pass over the Lesser Antilles going northeast out into the open Atlantic. So that's always an area that, any given time of the season, but most likely it's September, October that you're going to get in the eastern Caribbean Sea. And by the way, I feel like the southeast Caribbean Sea is going to be affected by a named storm this year. I have it in my top 20, a couple of those locations. I feel that those are areas that are rather vulnerable this year, as well as the Gulf of Mexico. I really feel the Gulf is going to be the epicenter this year for activity, and that includes the Mexican mainland from, Cancun all the way around to Tampico and La Pesca, Mexico, and Veracruz, areas like that, they tend to get hit a lot in these seasons like this because you have these systems that are developing down in the Gulf of Mexico. They're rather disorganized. They're under a lot of shear. They can be influenced by high-pressure ridges over the southeastern United States, and they get shoved right into Mexico. So people in Mexico need to be ready this year as well.
I will say this, for the Gulf resident, do bet for the old timers, for your older Gulf residents, ask them about Betsy and Audrey. Both of those were El Nino years.
Yeah, that's right. And there's been a whole look, Donna hit I'm
thinking too. There's a lot more where that came from.
Yeah, South Florida especially has had a whole host of hurricanes that have hit in average to below average seasons, and that's why again one of the reasons for doing the show tonight is even though it's an El Nino forecast and we're expecting a low number of named storms, believe it or not, I calculated all the seasons since 1950 and that had less than 10 named storms, and there was about since 1950, we've had maybe, about 20 seasons where we've had less than 10 named storms. And out of those 20 seasons, 55% of the named storms made landfall. So that's over 50% in a slow season. So being a slow season, you may be more vulnerable to getting a landfall in a slower season, believe it or not, than in some of the busy seasons where you have a lot of recurvatures out in the open Atlantic. Look, I'm not trying to say that a slow season is going to produce more landfalls. I'm just saying that a slow season does not mean less landfalls. That's all I'm trying to say.
If it's your city or your house that gets blasted by a hurricane, let me tell you, the numbers aren't going to mean a damn thing to you. Okay,
so anyway, here's the map showing basically all the disasters that have been happening since the beginning of the year, and since 2014 rather, and. Not anything hurricane related on that map. Quickly, we're not about preparedness here at Hurricane City, but just have your kit ready. Bill, I don't know if you've done this already, but I tend to look at the things that maybe a lot of people overlook. I look for the batteries that I've stored because a lot of times they get corroded. My generator, I crank it up on a regular basis, like once every couple of months. I put fuel stabilizer in there. I cut all my foliage at the beginning of the hurricane season, all the high, tall branches that are up over your roof that could break your roof up. Get them away from your roof. Cut those branches, haul them out to the street, let the city haul them away. Have a plan. Know what you're going to do with your family. Are you going to evacuate? Know your evacuation zones. And stuff like that. Have your shutters. If you have these kind of shutters where you got to put a bunch of screws in, make sure you have all that stuff ready and your tracks are clean and you know what you're going to do, because more people get injured cutting themselves, their hands, trying to drill new holes and all this crap as a hurricane's coming. Try to do that now. Save yourself the aggravation of when a hurricane is coming so you don't have to get all this stuff at the last second Home Depot and fight people and end up getting hit by a 2x4 like the bloody one I just had through me here. Like, you don't want somebody clubbing you over the head with a 2x4 because you stole the last piece of lumber off the rack. Just be prepared in advance so you can avoid all the hassle that's going to happen as a hurricane is approaching.
I have three cases of water, and I'll have enough either non-perishable food or meals ready to eat through like the military or something to that effect to last me a week or two. I will say this, and this is the last preparedness thing I'll say. Let's run down this. Have numerous ways to charge your phone. Spare cords for your phone. Goes back to our chasing. I've been all over Jim about having spare cords for everything. The last thing you want to do is be 1,000 miles from home and have a cord fail and ruin your entire day. Have spare cords, iPhone, whatever
Good
phone
point.
you use, spare cords. For example, I have two different ways that I can charge this charge my iPhone because I'm going to use the hell out of it during a hurricane. More so probably than the average person because of what I do with HC. But you got to have. I have a big battery that will charge this iPhone from dead. It's designed to start a car, but it'll also run things off like a. It's designed to run like a car cigarette lighter adapter. That'll charge this phone 50 times from dead, at least. So I'm good as far as that. Water, check your medication, stuff like that. I mean, I don't want to turn this into a preparedness show.
Yeah, there's too many things to list.
The common sense things. If you know you need it, make sure you have it.
Yeah.
Don't wait until a storm shows up to go get it.
Yeah, little things like a first aid kit, like it's on the picture here. You can pick that up at Walmart, Walgreens, CVS Pharmacy. Next time you're over there, just grab one. It's good to have on, because I'm telling you, man, in the aftermath of a hurricane, you're going to be out there moving something around, and you're going to cut yourself. Or at least have some gloves on hand so when you're moving things around, you're not cutting yourself. Somebody's going to get hurt doing something in the aftermath. And here's another thing. That flashlight picture on the screen, get a lot of flashlights. You can never have enough flashlights. Put one in every room. Have a lot of spare batteries. You never know how long you're going to be without power. And I know you leave a room, you forget the flashlight, and then it starts getting dark. You're like, what did I do with that flashlight?
Put one in every room and you won't have that problem.
Yeah, so, just have them in every room of your house or something with plenty of batteries. And, when it's all going down, though, listen to the authorities. They'll tell you what to do. If you're in an evacuation zone, get out while we head in.
Yes. Also, before the storm hits, download. You can watch our feed through your favorite app store. Go get the Ustream app, either at Google Play or the Apple Store. You can watch your feed, even if you have to go to the closet or an interior room. Say it gets bad, and you get scared. You can listen. You can either watch us or watch your local news on a variety of apps. But the Ustream app is available at your favorite app.
Let me interrupt you on that, because that's the beauty of the way we're going to broadcast. Is we're not going to leave you hanging, not knowing what's going on, because Bill's going to be flipping back and forth between the Weather Channel, CNN, while I'm out in the field. So whenever I'm not available because of video problems or technical issues or whatever, he'll go to the networks or another storm chaser that may have information and give you a complete picture of what's happening out there. So if you're going to singularly focus on CNN or the Weather Channel, you may be missing some of the interesting stuff we're producing. So Bill's going to show everything for you. It's not just going to be us chasing and that's it. You're going to see everything.
I mean, Jim has given basically turned the keys over to me with this. And trust me, I'm going to give you the best. I'm one person, but I'm going to try to give you the best multimedia experience for a hurricane online that can possibly be done. I know that's a lofty goal, but I'm going to give it my best shot.
Well, we've done enough practice on this. We should be able to pull this off, provided we're not both getting hit by the hurricane at the same time. But that's a whole other show. All right. Now, the final image I'm going to show here before the chicken suit gets reintroduced again, because I've had people emailing me, I want to see the chicken suit. So here's a graphic from the National Hurricane Center, and this is showing the most deaths in a hurricane are usually caused by, well, they're not usually, they always are caused by storm surge. Water is the biggest killer in hurricanes, and with sea level rise, and I don't want to get into the political aspects of this, but that's another subject I want to kind of talk about tonight, is how politicized it's all become. I used to love listening to Joe Bastardi talk about hurricanes, but he's so overly polarized now with the global warming stuff that you can't really get much hurricane information out of him. He's all about, trying to disprove global warming. So, meanwhile, the sea level continues to rise. People are more vulnerable now than ever before by rising waters, and especially here in South Florida, even in some normal high tides in some areas of Dade County, the roads have some minor flooding. So when a hurricane comes in here, it's not going to be pretty, folks. And I saw something that was a little disturbing on the news the other night, and that was the insurance commissioner for the state of Florida, or maybe it was FEMA, I'm not sure. They were saying that certain people were not required to carry flood insurance in the inland areas of South Florida, and I think that's a huge mistake. I've always held true all along that the biggest problem in South Florida from a major hurricane is going to be inland water flooding, and that's going to be from the Everglades, and that water is going to come in over those dikes out there, and it's going to be like a New Orleans scene down here. All these people that think that they're safe are going to be underwater, and if you don't have flood insurance and you live in South Florida, if you live in Dade or Broward County, I would be getting flood insurance. Now, if you're in Palm Beach County, there's what's called the Atlantic Ridge. It's a elevated area of land from my location north all the way up into West Palm Beach. That's pretty elevated, 12 to 15 feet high, so it probably is not going to have storm flooding from, it may be a temporary storm surge flooding in some areas, but the water will recede quickly. However, in the inland areas near Lake Okeechobee, all the way down through Dade, Broward counties, if you live inland, be worried about flooding. I'm telling you, you better get flood insurance, because if your home floods and you don't have that insurance, you're out of luck, and you can go yell at your insurance company all you want. They're not going to cut you a check unless you had flood insurance. We saw that with people in Sandy. We've seen it with people in Ike. They did not get covered because they did not have flood insurance. It's better to be safe than sorry. It's not that expensive. Just go ahead and get it.
They're going to give your kids a teddy bear maybe before the insurance adjuster leaves, and other than that, they'll laugh at you if you don't have the appropriate insurance. Bye-bye. Yep. They're thinking, oh, that's another house we don't have to pay for. Bye-bye.
Exactly. They're looking for ways not to pay insurance. And now, here's another thing, rainfall-induced flooding. So if you take this pie chart, 3/4 of the chart is deaths caused by either rain or storm surge. So very few people die from the wind. It's only 5 to 10%. Surf is 5%. That's another water aspect, surf, right? So now we're up to 75, 80% of the deaths are water-related. And then offshore, I don't know what that means. That also means water. So it's actually 85%. And then you got wind, tornado, unknown, and other. So probably, for all intents and purposes, 90% of all deaths in hurricanes are caused by some sort of water incident, not the wind.
Now, I will say this, and this is unique to Florida and Louisiana because of the Everglades and the marshlands of South Carolina, New Orleans, and then the Everglades, Florida. Be wary of. I will give you one tip. Look after your pets when you let them out after one of these storms, because you're going to have animals, and some you don't want, roaming around because of the flooding. Be very, very careful, especially with your pets in the aftermath of one of these storms.
All right. Camera's back up. Again, when you're listening to Bill Phillips, I'm Jim Williams. Let me go split screen on this here, and you can always email us, jim@hurricanecity.com, or you can call. We have the phone line open tonight. I don't know how well that's going to work out, but we'll try. Dial us up if you want to talk to us, 561-278-8905. That's our fax line.
I'll repeat that because you're a little hard to hear right
I know.
now.
This mask is just horrendous, man. 561-278-8905. And we will try to patch you through and see what you think about the upcoming hurricane season. We're going to broadcast up until about 9:30 tonight, and then we're going to can it. It is absolutely roasting in this outfit tonight. But
Suffer!
if you're shy and you don't want to talk, email us, jim@hurricanecity.com, jim@hurricanecity.com, and we'll talk about, tell us where you're located and what your fears are
going into this hurricane season? Do you fear it at all? Do you think it's all just a bunch of hype and bull crap and there's nothing to worry about? Or are you really worried about your area because you haven't been hit in a long time? That's some people are worried about that. My ticking time bomb this year is Boca Raton, Florida.
That's
Why?
right.
Boca Raton has the longest period in the Hurricane City database that breaks its all-time record for the longest period of no activity. Now, in some areas that wouldn't be a big deal, but in Boca Raton, Florida, there's such a high frequency of named storms that come through this area that to go 6 years without a named storm it's broken its own record. I think the previous record was like 5 years with no named storms. We're going on 6. I think it's even up to 7. I got to double check that, but
I believe it's up to 7.
Anyway, that phone number 561, and please don't call it just to BS. I mean, well, it's okay to BS, but I'd like to hear your thoughts on the upcoming hurricane season. 561-278, and here we go. Of course, it's my sister. She has the call in, right? All right, let me take it.
You gotta take it.
Yep.
You gotta take the abuse. I gotta love it.
Wait a minute. No, she's calling on the other number. That's not going to work. You got to call on the fax number, folks. 561-278-8905 is the number. All right, so, Bill, as I was saying before, I don't know what your opinions are on this, but the whole hurricane subject has become so politicized because there are certain people out there that are just hell-bent on saying that hurricanes are going to be more dramatic because of global warming, and then you have another camp that are like, global warming is a hoax, it's not doing anything different, there's nothing to fear. And, Dr. Gray is moving in that direction because he's been working with Phil Klotzbach, and now Dr. Gray has decided to put all his focus on global warming, as Joe Bastardi seems to have done from Weather Bell.
You have this whole camp of, and Jim and I got on a discussion, might have been Friday or Saturday. I sent Jim an article from a Gulf Coast meteorologist. I'm not going to use his name here. I'll be nice.
That's James Spann. You can go ahead and say it.
All right, and it was just nothing but climate denying, that these are just normal weather events. Give me a break.
Yeah, this is where I differ on this. I don't think all these events are business as usual. Things are definitely getting worse. But what really concerns me, and it doesn't get discussed enough, is the sea level rise, because that's going to have a huge impact on the hurricane season. When hurricanes make landfall, what would have normally provided a major hurricane storm surge, a Category 1 could potentially produce a major hurricane storm surge because of sea level rise. And this is a real concern. And for people to downplay it like it's not a big deal, it's nothing to be concerned about, nothing to see here, I just think that's horrible for the industry. And every time there's a hurricane out there, they're trying to, this is just normal. Okay, it's normal, but what happens when it makes landfall and that storm surge is much higher than it normally would be?
If you're a resident on the Boulevard Peninsula, was Ike normal to you? No, it destroyed that area. That was a Category 2 with probably what would normally be considered a major hurricane surge from a Category 2 because of the size and the amount of water that thing generated. What's not being discussed is these storms are getting larger, and they're able to generate a smaller storm, and maybe I shouldn't use this word, a bigger storm with less wind can generate the same amount of water that would be considered major hurricane level storm surge now, because these storms are getting larger, and that's the problem, and it's not being discussed enough. Go ahead, Jim.
Yeah, no, my point is it just shouldn't be synonymous with hurricanes every time the subject comes up. I mean, we can discuss it after it's over with. We can debate whether it was global warming or not, but to tell people that there's nothing any different as far as storm surge is completely ridiculous. And like that, again, back to the saying that the surge, the water flooding potential is lower in the western suburbs of Dade and Broward County, and then saying people don't need flood insurance. I think it's just completely ridiculous. I think they need the flood insurance. I think South Florida, within the next 50 years, are going to have to start relocating people that are in low-lying areas. They're not going to be able to live in these areas. And it's a big concern. And when hurricanes hit, it's going to erode. Every time a hurricane hits, it's going to make it even worse. And it really needs to be addressed. But I'm just tired of every time somebody putting a hurricane forecast on there, it has to follow it up with, oh, this does not have anything to do with CO2, and here's the latest CO2 levels, and blah, 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 blah. They're just muddying the waters with this, and I just want people focused on what the hurricane is going to do that's coming and what's going to happen and where they need to go and what they got to do, and leave the global warming for another day.
You know, it's everything. For those that don't know, I'm just about done getting my degree in political science at Old Dominion University. And I'm going to go into a lot of this, but we have to stop politicizing this issue. This is no longer a left, right, moderate, conservative, center, whatever you want to call it. This is an issue. If we don't deal with it, it's going to destroy lives and reshape our coastline. It's already doing that. Just like you're having the problems in South Florida with sea level rise, the Outer Banks are even in worse shape than South Florida is.
Yeah.
I firmly believe in my lifetime the Outer Banks may cease to exist.
Yeah, I agree with that. I've been there. I've seen it with you, and it's bad. It's getting worse all the time. And rising water is going to kill so many people in hurricanes. It's really scaring me, and people need to be aware of it. We need to be aware of your elevation. You know, there's an app you can buy for your phone that allows you to see what your current elevation is, where you're standing. Just type in, when you're searching for apps, just type in elevation apps. And there's several free ones out there that'll tell you what your elevation is and where you need to go to get to higher elevation, and that could save a lot of lives. But
on your iPhone will also show you how your elevation as well.
All right, let me peck away at the keyboard here and go through some of these emails. That's pretty good, pretty good. This is from Bobby. She's listening. By the way, can I say something about Bobby Kane, Bobby Storm, Bobby? Oh, my God, she's got so many aliases, woman. Come on. You're killing me, man. You know, let's not even get on the social networking stuff, but, I mean, I follow her, like, on Twitter, like 3 different accounts. I don't even know which one she's posting her hurricane stuff on, but anyway, Bobby, I understand she's working with the Spaghetti Models website, and she posts over there and blah, blah, blah. But I do enjoy her post. She tends to add a little bit of music in her writings about the way she feels about a particular thing that's going on in the tropics, and then she puts a nice spin on it. So it's kind of entertaining to watch her read her post and pay attention to what she's doing on the internet. But she just emailed us and said, all those people who ran away from Southwest Miami-Dade after Andrew and moved to West Broward all the way out west could have massive inland flooding. No one even talks about it, thanks. And she's right. I mean, everybody thinks just move inland and you get away from the ocean. That may be true in, you know, I guess anywhere in the United States. South Florida is unique.
Texas, you can do that.
Yeah, parts of Louisiana Bayou. You're not getting away from the water just because you're 10, 15 miles inland. You know, there are areas that are swampy and vulnerable, and sea level rise is taking them over, man. And you got to be aware of how that water. And this is where the updated surge maps from the National Hurricane Center are going to come really in handy.
With these storms getting larger, and the amount of water and precipitation that these storms have, if you are anywhere in that path, you will not get off scot-free, especially with inland flooding and the amount of rain that these storms produce. And another thing that we have to talk about is, as the surge comes in, Jim and I were talking about this the other day, there's going to be nowhere for the drains to take the water. So the drains are going to back up. What's all going to happen? All that water will come through the drains.
Yep. That's right.
I've seen it happen here once, where water almost came to my door. The only thing that stopped it was was a little bit of an incline that forced it back down. But it was close. I was on an island for about 7-8 hours. Couldn't go anywhere.
Yeah. You don't want to get trapped, that's for sure. That's a big problem, especially up in your area. She went on to say on this email here that the 1947 hurricane that hit South Florida dropped 5 to 13 inches of rain across central and southern part of the state, including in Hialeah, where the post-storm mass gag. Oh my God. Oh my God. Killing me. The storm produced 3 to 6 inches of rain in 1 hour period over 6 inches in a 75-minute period. The flooding rains left many neighborhoods in up to 6 feet of water due to previously wet summer and left over 2,000 Miami-Dade County residents homeless. That was a 1947 hurricane. That was another one of those in fact, that whole stretch of the late 40s, we had hurricanes coming from the east, from the south. They were coming from every direction and really pounding South Florida. So, yeah. Bobby, thank you for that.
What was the amount of? Do you remember off the top of your head the amount of homes destroyed after Andrew?
Ask that question again.
The amount of homes destroyed, ballpark, from Andrew.
30,000.
30,000. That's...
Yep. And that was the less populated areas of South Florida too.
Because it was south of Kendall Drive, going down.
Yep.
Going away from, it was south of downtown Miami. You missed the downtown area by 10 miles. Put Andrew 10 miles further north, and you have a completely different story.
Yep. It's amazing when you think about it. What could have happened versus what did, and then of course, let's not even get into the reanalysis project from the Hurricane Research Division. But they originally had it as a Cat 4. They upgraded it to a Category 5. They've done this with numerous storms over the years. And by the way, let me put a shout out to Fred up in Long Island. Fred has Hurricanes, Blizzards, Nor'easters.com. His link is at Hurricane City in the drop-down menus. Amazing. In fact, all the database pages of Hurricane City, when you click on how many hurricanes there's been, there's a graph there that goes state by state. You click on, those are Fred's pages with its graphs. He's updated them all, but him and I, we emailed back and forth, and we're like, it's impossible to keep up with these guys at the Hurricane Research Division. They're always changing stuff. Like, that wasn't 140 knots, it was 150 knots. And this one came in 30 miles further west than what we originally thought it was. And it's so hard to keep up with the statistics on these things. But I do it at Hurricane City. We constantly tweak the database to include the latest HURDAT findings from the database at the Hurricane Research Division, but it's so hard to keep up with, man. Fred and I are always venting about that. Like, he has to change all his graphs and his charts and pie charts and graphs he has and everything. It
makes you want to pull your hair out.
All right, here's one from Wendy. I'm enjoying all the tips in case there is a hurricane. Important for people to know these things. Thank you very much. Let's see. Fred commented, another thing to do before a hurricane is fill up a few 5-gallon containers with gas. Oh, you know what? That's a good point. I do that. I have a big container on the side of the house, and if I know I'm going to get pounded by a hurricane, I'll fill all those 5-gallon containers up
So I have extra fuel for my generator, for my vehicles, because all the gas stations, a lot of them might not be pumping gas, depending on how bad it is. A lot of them have generators now, but still, you never know. He said here on Long Island, they were closed. Most gas stations were closed because of the damage or out of gas. And a few that had gas, the lines were so long, they had to wait more than 2 hours online for gas. So he's right. And you know, if you're in a flood zone, it doesn't matter if you have power or you don't, or they have a generator or they don't. You're not getting gas because that area is underwater anyway. So
shut it down anyway because it's a hazard. They have to inspect the lines and everything else because of the flooding, which will prolong the time that before you have the opportunity to get gas. So prepare now for that. That's our message to that. Make sure you have enough gas to, I would say, at least fill your vehicle once. If you're to a half, 3/4, even a full tank, if you can do it once on your own, that should get you through the storm and through the aftermath.
Yep. Yeah, just,
you know,
there's not, you know what, make yourself a nice checklist, everything you're going to need to do. You know, in fact, like your local newspapers, a lot of them have checklist of all the things you're going to need. But you know, we're suggesting things here tonight that may not even be in those newspapers, like the whole corrosion on the batteries thing. Because they might look like they're good, but you got to look at them real closely for corrosion. Because once they got corrosion on them, they're pretty much shot.
And I'm going to say this, and this is my last preparedness tip of the evening. They say 3 to 7 days, be prepared to go on your own. It should be 1 to 2 weeks, especially major storms. You have to be self-sufficient because you may not have the help. You've got to be able to take care of things on your own.
Yeah, and you know, I posted on Facebook the other day about the disabled evacuation shelters. You know, a lot of disabled people were under the impression in Hurricane Sandy that they had to go to a hospital, like that no evacuation center would take them. And the evacuation centers are set up to help disabled people. So don't assume that you can't get help at a shelter if you're disabled. And
for if you have, for anybody listening that has a disability and has a question about what shelters will or will not do for the disabled, don't hesitate to email me that question. I have no problem answering that because I can probably answer it for you because I have the disability. So, email me. My email's on the site there on the About page. If you have a question about disability and shelter, email me first, but if I can't answer it, go back to your emergency management folks for that.
Yeah, and
probably help you with it.
And also, Bill and I have attended these workshops at these conferences on disabled stuff, and Bill's aunt worked at a special needs disabled shelter, so he's got a lot of experience with what people have gone through in those places too. So anybody with any questions, maybe you have a relative or a friend or somebody that's got an issue and they don't know whether they should evacuate or whether there's somewhere to go, just give Bill a shout, Bill at hurricanecity.com, and he's pretty up on all that stuff. In fact, he may end up doing that for a living once he graduates. I don't know, but,
it's just, use your common sense. Know where the shelters are. If you need transportation to get to those shelters, if you can't drive because of the disabilities, a lot of those, if you need special transportation to get to the shelters, one tip I will give now is make sure you get on the list at the beginning of the season. Not saying if you're in an area and you want out, the authorities will help you, but it does make it easier logistically for them if you do pre-register, if you know you need help.
Yep. And people, take your loose objects indoors so this doesn't happen to you. This was caused by a tropical storm, folks. Take your stuff
Damn it,
indoors.
Anna.
No 2x4s. No empty barrels. No leaving your empty garbage cans outside. No, what else? Come on, Bill, help me here.
Glass.
What are the crap that people leave outside in hurricanes?
I've seen people leave their trash can, pieces of lawn furniture, grills. Don't leave anything that can be a projectile that the wind can get a hold of. And because for somebody filming or somebody walking around, anything that's loose, they become anything that's loose in 60, 70, 80 mile an hour wind and up becomes like missiles.
That's right.
And it destroys things.
Yeah, and the other thing is, I see a lot of these plastic chairs that people leave outside, lawn furniture. They becomes missiles, like flying through the air, could knock somebody's head off. Another thing I noticed when I was down in Tropical Storm Isaac down in the Keys in 2012 was people parking their cars on high ground. Now, you have a lot of overpasses. People are parking their cars on overpasses, parking garages. So there's a rush for people to get their cars to high ground. So it's something to think about, because that storm surge comes in, it's going to swallow your car up. If you're in the Florida Keys, if you're in low-lying areas, your car's going to go underwater. So find high ground. The people in the Keys pretty much know how to do that. But if you're unfamiliar with hurricanes and you live in a coastal area, you better get your car elevated above ground, because if the surge doesn't get it, maybe the wave action will.
You've got to use common sense. You've got to plan for this. Also, we've kind of turned this into kind of skimming preparedness. But I will say this: your insurance, check it now. Do not check it when a storm. Do not try to get insurance when a storm develops, because once you're in the cone, they'll stop writing policies because they don't want the liability. Too late. If you need renter's insurance, if you need insurance, if you're just getting into a new home or your insurance is lapsed, you got to get it now.
Yep. And another thing, while you're on the subject of insurance, we just had this happen to us. We paid for our insurance for a whole year for our wind insurance. The mortgage company didn't get wind of it because the insurance company didn't tell them. So now the mortgage company wants to start their own policy on us, which is twice the amount of money. Make sure your insurance company knows that tells your mortgage company that your bill's been paid, because, oh my God, they can hit you twice on that.
Did you get it straightened around?
We're still working on it.
Oh my God, man.
Got some more emails here. This is from Sandy Duratani. I can't see through this mask.
Go on.
You said you would go down to the Keys for a Category 5 hurricane. Have you ever been out in a hurricane that strong before? By the way, I love Bobby too. Yeah, she's pretty entertaining on her post. I have not been in a Cat 5. I have not been in a Cat 4. I've been in a Cat 3.
Have you?
Hurricane Gene. I was in Wilma, which was a Cat 2 through South Florida. I was in Hurricane George, 1998. Category 2, almost a Cat 3. I've been in numerous tropical storms, many Cat 1s. Let's see, what else? Hurricane Francis, Category 2. No, I have not been in a Category 5. And the reason I'm stupid enough to say I'm going to go down to the Keys and film and bring you the information from the Keys is because the way I look at it, as a guy that covers hurricanes and has been tracking these things for over 20 years on the internet and for much longer before the internet came around, the opportunity to go down and film an epic, probably once-in-a-lifetime mega disaster like that is too much to pass up. Even if I lost the vehicle, if I could get the footage of it, it would be unbelievable. Watching Key West come apart in a Category 5. So I can't pass it up. I'm definitely going to go. I'm just going to look for high ground and stay in high ground and ride it out, and then I'll get back to the mainland somehow. But, you know, the Louisiana area is a whole other thing that I'm really not willing to tackle that, like the down near...
New Orleans? No.
Well, New Orleans, south all the way to Plaquemines Parish and all that, that's a real high flood zone, and I just don't want to deal with that and be stuck down there. But the Florida Keys definitely is close enough to home. I'll probably risk it and try that. But if you live in the Florida Keys and a Cat 5 is coming, you should probably get out because your house is going to be underwater. I'm going to try to get up in a parking garage or up on a bridge or something and ride it out that way, but... You're a family person, you got children, I wouldn't recommend that at all, but I'm going there simply to cover the story and bring live video of it, if we're able to, but, you know, I've been in enough hurricanes to know the danger of it and see the stuff that flies in the area and where to stay, you know, where to take cover, what angle to face the wind, all those kinds of things. I have my elevation maps, I'm fully prepared, so I'll take the risk, even though I may end up like this. Bill and I have talked about that. He might be talking to me, and I might have a 2x4 through my chest. Over, but he'll keep broadcasting.
I'm not condoning drink. We're not condoning alcohol during hurricanes and drinking. But I've told Jim to make sure he has his beer if that ever happens.
Yep. All right, man. Let's go ahead and wrap it up. Phone lines are now cut off. You missed your opportunity to call into the show, but this will be archived at Hurricane City on our Ustream page. And I want to thank all the people that have been donating to Hurricane City from the beginning. We have people that have donated since day one. They make an annual donation of $20. It's not that much money. It's pennies, really, when you think about it. It helps with all our expenses, all of our software downloads, all the upgrades to Hurricane City, all the equipment we're going to need to go on the road, everything to cover it. It's going to be entertaining. You're really going to enjoy what we produce. It'd be like a soap opera you watch unfolding as the season goes on. Keep checking back to Hurricane City. Watch the update videos. Watch our live shows. We're going to do Hurricane Watch shows this year if there's any Hurricane Watches hoisted. So it's going to be a lot of fun. We're going to dissect all the storms and just do it as a lot of hurricane hobbyists love to do, and that's track these things. So that's it. Thank you again, and help support Hurricane City. We'll see you. We'll announce when the next show is going to take place. I have a lot to say about Facebook, so we may do a Facebook show coming up in the next month or so if things aren't active in the tropics. And that's it. Bill, any final words?
Good night, everyone, and stay with Hurricane City. We're looking forward to bringing you the, live video from the road. We just hope we get the opportunity, but that's up to Mother Nature and what the hurricane season provides. But we're ready. We're looking forward to it. We're tired of practicing. We're ready to play. Let's see what happens. Good night, everybody.
All right, good night, Bill, and thanks for your help. And we'll be in touch, and we'll work together this hurricane season. Good luck, everybody, this year, and take a look at my predictions. If you're one of those areas, be extra cautious this year, but anybody can get hit in any given hurricane season. Remember that. Good night, everybody.
Good night.